This
right in.
conference will now be recorded.
Got it.
Great, great. Well, Tim, I'll hand the floor over to you to get us started.
All right, thank you, Will. So welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you participating in our quarterly town hall this evening. But before we get started tonight, I want to share a few housekeeping items. First off, everyone attending is asked to please mute your audio during the presentation so we can reduce the background noise for the presenters. Second, if you have any questions, please use the chat box. We will be monitoring this throughout the presentation, and we have time reserved at the end for a Q&A. And finally, if you cannot stay for the entire presentation, as you heard, we are recording this, and we will provide the recording for tonight's session on the NWBA website. So we'll go to next slide, Tina.
Here we go.
All right, as you can see, tonight's town hall agenda includes about 50 minutes of content, and we have reserved 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. So we do have a packed agenda, but we will do our best to stay on schedule, as we know everybody has some tight schedules and other commitments. So we will begin moving forward with NWBA leadership changes. Go ahead to the next two slides.
Sorry, Tim, it's being a little slow, so bear with me.
Yeah, not a problem, Tina.
There we go.
We'll go one more. All right. So first off, we would like to thank former board of directors, Bruce Fishbach, Doug Arambula, and Lee Montgomery for their years in service on the board, who have rotated off effective as of the annual meeting. In addition, we want to congratulate the re-elected board of director members, Ryan Martin, Mike Godsey, and Stephanie Wheeler. Plus, welcome the new board of directors, Doug Jones, Teresa Skinner, Matt Pierre, Michelle Alvin, and Stephen Curtis. So this year, we engaged our governance committee, which is accountable for helping us with the succession planning and recruitment of the board. This committee's had very active debates. They had high-level engagement, and the committee was made up of Harsh Thacker, Eve Hampton, and Dan Ferreira. We had about 20 candidates for the 8 positions for the board of directors alone, not to mention the committee level interest that funneled to us, as well. We want to thank everyone and those who ran for the leadership positions. We greatly value your passion, your interest in leading our organization. There are too many talented people to mention by name, but thank you all. And thank to all NWBA leaderships, the standing and ad hoc committees, divisional executive committees for your service, dedication, and hard work. People who take on these roles are all volunteers. We could not run a successful nonprofit without each of you, so thank you very much for the time that you dedicate. We're continuing to add leadership teams to our website. As everyone knows, one of our goals is to have open lines of communication and achieve being transparent as an organization. So, as shown in these screenshots, you can find the leadership teams listed on the NWBA website and email leaders directly through the web. We encourage you to contact leadership to provide feedback, voice opinions, ask questions. A specific committee example listed here is for ethics. That is important if you feel there's a behavior or policy violation that needs to be addressed. And now we will go to Tina Kane to provide the season report.
Great, thanks, Tim. So just want to start, sorry, the slides are going to catch up with me here. Just want to start with a year in review of our registration numbers. Let's try it again. There we go. So here, this chart is going to show the registrations to date. So on that far right column, it shows 9/22 as of today. And in the 2 columns before it, it shows the previous seasons, 2019, 20 to 2020, and then last season, which we'll title the COVID season, there with our registration numbers for teams and then for individuals. So the reason why we're showing this is because we're really excited about the numbers, and we're starting to see trends back to the 2019-2020 season in the pre-COVID season, which is great. And the total number of teams that we had last year was 100. So as you can see here, we've already surpassed that for the total season or the total numbers from last year, which is great for the number of teams. More teams registering means that we have more competition opportunities. There's more opportunities out there for events, for other athletes to get involved. So if there's anyone out there that was worried about having enough games to play or having enough competition this season, those numbers should help try to build some confidence and encouragement to have a great season. We're exceeding our expectations, and we feel like we're on a really good path to recovering from that COVID season. So actually, I'm gonna go back to that slide. So another thing I want to note here is just basically that note at the bottom. And it's just basically to get your teams registered and get your individuals registered. Do it now and get it done early in the season so there isn't any issues with eligibility. I realize that you'd much rather be on the court than doing this administrative process. I know it's cumbersome and I know it can be frustrating. It's multiple steps. Even Will had to ask if he had all of his stuff submitted. So we understand that it's there, but please know that those steps are there and they are part of the process because it's what keeps our organization safe. It's what helps us follow all of our policies and protocols. So those steps are there for a reason. So just make sure that you're getting your teams registered early in the season. All that said, we have had a lot of registrations submitted. So I know there's some people that have submitted some concerns about having registered your team and then it's not showing up so that the individuals can register, then also not seeing the team rosters on the website. We've certainly heard your concerns. We're working through that. We're trying to make sure that we're processing those as soon as we can. So just appreciate a little bit of patience there, and just know that we're trying to work through that mass amount of registrations. So on to here, this is basically some screenshots for the NWBA events and for sanctioned events. So in addition to being excited about our registration numbers, what's great is we're also seeing a great trend in the numbers of events that are being submitted for NWBA sanctioned events, which is fantastic. And we're really excited about the fact of how many wheelchair basketball events are going to be hosted this year. So thanks to everybody who's already submitted those. But again, these numbers are just encouraging for anybody who's had concerns about not having enough competition, or you've been hesitant about maybe hosting an event thinking that there aren't going to be enough teams that are going to come. But we're really seeing those trends moving forward and we're really excited about it. So the other concern that we've heard from membership is that our website's a little tough to navigate. So that's why we included some screenshots in the slides that Tim presented, but also here. So it's basically just showing where the sanctioned events are posted on the website. So if you go to the events tab and then sanctioned events, and then if you want to submit a sanctioned event or an application for it, it shows where you go to that under the members tab, applications and forms. And then our website's now built with a lot of these tab elements where you can flip through. Once you get to a page, you can flip through different information. So you're not scrolling through 10 pages to try to get to what you're looking for. So there's an event sanction application tab there that has all of the information about how to submit the application and then also the link to do the registration for it. So the next thing that we want to talk about is what's upcoming with our national tournament. So you can see here we have all of our different divisions with dates, locations, and some notes there on each one of them. You may have seen the announcement that went out today that was published regarding the adult and junior divisions returning to Wichita. Just another note there on these dates, we've tried to be conscientious of other major events going on, holidays, things like that. So just know that the dates that we've put in or secured for these events are because of that. And a special thanks we want to give to all of our hosts. We know it's a lot of hard work. They put in a lot of effort to make our events successful. So we're really grateful to them for all that they do. And then just another note there to make sure that you're following all the postseason deadlines, and we'll have those posted on our website. So the last thing I want to touch on is just a little bit of return to play and continuing our COVID-19 protocols that have been on our website. This is a little bit of basically just a refresher on the information that's been posted before. So a lot of what you're going to see here is just screenshots from previous presentations, just reiterating that nothing has changed, that it's basically staying the same in terms of guidance from last season going into this season. So the important takeaways are basically in these 3 bullets. So what you want to do is understand the guidance from whatever the local organization is, whether it's city, county, or state, making sure that you're adhering to whatever your parent or sponsor organizations are requiring, whether you belong with a hospital or your team's sponsored by a university or whatever the case may be, just making sure that you're following all of their protocols and guidelines. And then also following what the CDC has published. And all of this information on the return to play piece is posted on our website with the link there. It's just nwba.org return to play. So the next slide is kind of continuation of that. So it's basically more of the COVID-19 information. And on the left is basically just additional information that you're going to want to consider if you're hosting an event, if you're putting your program back into play and back on the court. Just being mindful of what's still around, unfortunately, with COVID-19 and the spread, and just making sure that we're doing due diligence and being responsible about hosting events and returning our teams to playing again. And on the right, there's some links there that reference into the CDC, and then USOPC has published some things on COVID-19 and their resources, and then also where the information is posted on our website. So it's been updated since then. So the link there at the bottom on the COVID-19 information can be found on the NWBA website, and it's nwba.org and then /COVID-19. So unless anybody has any questions, I'll turn it back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Tina, and we are now going to pass it over to Will Waller.
Thanks, Tim. So there's probably not a week that goes by that somebody doesn't call me or send me an email and say, Will, what's the NWBA going to do about the NAWBL? And for those of you who don't know what the NAWBL is, that we had some members of the organization form their own North America wheelchair basketball league. And I think when people are asking me that question, a lot of times they're looking for whether or not there's going to be some type of an emotional response. And to be honest with you, the response isn't emotional at all. So Tina, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Really from a positive perspective, before I get into any of the content on the page, the reality is that if this organization is creating an opportunity for teams to compete who wouldn't otherwise be able or interested to compete for the NWBA, but more people get an opportunity to benefit from playing the game of wheelchair basketball, we don't really have any issue with people doing that. What the startup of this league does do, I think, is force us as an organization to step back and say, are we delivering on the value proposition that we're committing to deliver to our members? So all of our members, all of you on this call, pay money to be part of this organization. And in return for the money that you're spending with the NWBA to compete, it's our job to make sure that we're delivering as much, if not more, value than what you're paying in order to compete with us. So at a high level, that's our overall response on the NAWBL. And it's really just an opportunity to make sure that we're delivering on that strategy, as well as continue to think about how do we add even more value to the people who participate in our organization. So if you then step into it, then from there into more of a tactical discussion on how do these two organizations coexist, and what does it mean for a team out there in the field who's thinking about joining one organization or the other, or how their games are going to influence outcomes with their participation with the NWBA. And first and foremost, one of the major policies and processes that drives our organization is our event sanction process. And we didn't create the event sanction process just to put more administrative burden on all of you as members of our organization. Truly, one of the most important things that come through our event sanctioning is that we have the opportunity as an organization to ensure that we're creating a safe culture and environment for our competitions and other events to take place. So that is a sort of hallmark of what we've been focusing on over the last couple of years. And none of you on the call here tonight would have to look very far in order to see some of the negative effects in other sports of not having a culture around safety. Some of the scandals that have taken place and the horrific things that have happened to athletes. So we've adopted the safe sport policy that comes down from the USOPC, and the minor athlete abuse and prevention policy that also comes down from the USOPC and Congress. And so when I get into some of my answers for the next few slides and the questions that are on the slides, at the core of each of those answers is the critical importance that we place on making sure that none of our athletes ever experience what some gymnasts and swimmers experienced, and that the NWBA never becomes synonymous with sexual scandals. Next slide, please. And hopefully, you know, before I dive into this, you all had a chance to see where you can find all of the critical information on event sanctions, what those steps and requirements are, as well as the tools and forms on where to get them. But one of the major questions that keeps coming up is what teams can play in NWBA sanctioned events, and the answer to that is simple. Only NWBA registered teams may participate in competition of the event. Each registered team is only allowed to roster one team for each sanctioned event. No split rostering of a team for an event. Teams that register within other leagues may play in NWBA sanctioned events if they register with the NWBA and meet all of the requirements with the NWBA and the athlete, non-athlete eligibility requirements of the NWBA. So essentially the summary answer there is, if you want to play in an NWBA sanctioned event, you have to follow the existing NWBA requirements. If you want to follow the requirements of another organization to compete in their organization, that's great, but our standards and our requirements haven't changed at all relative to competing in our events. Next slide, please. What individuals can play and or participate in NWBA sanctioned events? And this is going to be very similar. So we're going from sort of a team response to an individual response here, but only NWBA registered athletes can participate in NWBA sanctioned events. And those events will only use active rosters generated from the team webpage on the NWBA website. The reason why those rosters are used is because that's when we've already confirmed that somebody meets the requirements of being a registered athlete. And then Equally important is on the non-athlete side, only NWBA registered non-athletes can sit on the bench of a team during competition, and reference team roster on the NWBA web page to make sure that the appropriate people are there, because that's again going to be the source that guides all confirmation of who meets those requirements. Only NWBA registered floor officials may be used for competition in NWBA sanctioned events, because again, we want to make sure that all of the officials who are working at our events, they've gone through the background check, they've gone through the safe sport training, and they meet all of the standards from a safety perspective. So in order to find out who are those individuals who are officials that meet those requirements, you can see the website listed here, www.nwba.org/officials. So, again, trying to drive the standard to meet the registration requirements, meet the sanction requirements, and then, things are going to, meet our standard and protect our participants. Next slide, Tina. So what does that mean as far as results, for the teams that are participating in different competitions? The question that specifically keeps coming up: do game results of non-sanctioned NWBA events count towards NWBA game minimums, postseason application, or team seeding and ranking consideration? And the answer is no. Only competition played during NWBA sanctioned events is considered for use of NWBA game minimums for the postseason application and or the team seeding and ranking. So again, we're not saying that you should not play, teams in another league. We're not saying that you shouldn't go pick up other games, informally. But if you want your games to count, you need to make sure that the event is a confirmed NWBA sanctioned event, and that the teams there and the individuals there are fully registered and compliant with the standards that I had met. And those responses have nothing to do with the fact that we don't want other people to participate in another league. It doesn't mean that we have negative feelings towards the other league. It just means that we have to uphold the standard and the process that we're accountable to uphold, that we've established for ourselves, but also that we follow through the USOPC. So with that, Tim, and then instead of handing it over to you, I'm going to flip it over to Hannah directly, who's going to cover some content on our military division. Hannah?
Hey team, so happy everyone's back together. Well, just to start off, I hope that everybody's already heard about the military division. It's a really exciting new pilot program. I know Lee's on here. Lee, if you want to jump in anytime too, if you have anything. I know he was going to go over some of these points too. Again, the pilot program is going to use the classification system of, I'm not going by the slides. Oh, well, just to summarize that, we're going to use the Mod Max Min classification system that is used at Wounded Warrior Games. So this is going to include able bodies. So the classification for that will be minimal disability, and it'll include TBI, PTSD, the whole shebang. So the NWBA is giving the opportunity to these athletes that don't have anything to do after Warrior Games. We're getting a lot of athletes after Warrior Games, they have 2 years and then they don't really have anything else and nowhere to really fit. So I'm pumped about it. Me and Lee have been talking to all our contacts, and we did virtual Wounded Warrior Games last week, which was awesome. We did a little basketball shooting competition, but they gave me the opportunity to speak about the league to all of those athletes. The Air Force is really excited about it. We had a Zoom actually this morning, Lee and I, and it sounds like we already have 3 teams ready to go. So if you guys have anybody that is interested in it, or any athletes, just individual athletes or organizations, we're just looking to find teams at this point. And if anybody's wanting to host a tournament as well, you can host it with your original tournaments. We're excited to learn about that. We're trying to put things on the schedule to get our first one ready. Let's see, Lee, are you on here?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Hey, Michelle. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Back to business on hand. Yeah, this military division is definitely a win-win situation for us, and we're really excited about getting it started. This pilot program, I'm hoping that's going to get off with a bang. The Warrior Games was canceled this year, so that kind of impacted our reaching out to some of the local based teams here in the country. But I'm sure we're going to get around and get that going here pretty soon. So just be patient. We're working as fast as we can and get as many teams as we can get involved. Like Hannah said, if you hear of someone want to put together a team and reach out to us, and we can get that all taken care of. So if nothing else, if anyone have a question, we'll open it up at the end, I guess.
That's right, Lee. We'll open it up for questions at the end, and I just want to lean in on a couple of quick points here. You know, we can't do it alone, so we really appreciate Hannah's leadership and Lee's leadership and a group of other people who've been coming together on calls and conference calls to really help us put some meat on the bone on what this plan is going to look like. But what we really need is the broader members of the organization. If you know somebody who meets the criteria, let's figure out how we can get them connected. And if you feel like you've got a critical mass in your community where you've got enough people to field a team, I think that there couldn't be a more worthy group of individuals to try to work with to put together another team within the organization, because this is getting us back to how we got started as an organization back in the late 40s, and it's certainly, you know, an output of people continuing to give the NWBA feedback and say we need to give this a try. And I was really excited earlier this year when the board approved the pilot program. So it's, I think, one of the most exciting things we have going on as an organization because of how it gets us back to our roots and really shows that we're trying to listen to what members have to say. So
And
with
remember,
that,
you don't have to play. We didn't do the restrictions for like where you live. So if you have a friends that live on the East Coast, West Coast, they can play together. So like a Winter Warriors Games team could technically put in a team if they'd like. So those restrictions aren't in place at the moment for the pilot program.
yeah,
Once they get on the roster, then it's all good from that point on. So
Right.
let's play ball.
let's play ball. Couldn't have said it better, guys. Thank you for that. So Tina, I'll just make the transition here if you don't mind. Our next section is on the financials of the organization, and Mike Godsey, our treasurer, is going to cover these slides.
Bookkeeper.
Hi, everyone. Glad you're here, and I'm going to try and get through this pretty quick if we can. Here we go. So we got the next slide, and the top part of this is based off of our quarterly financials. Those updates are always on our website. If you go to the top of the website, it's over on the right-hand side where it says About, and then just beneath that, How We Operate, and Quarterly Financials is one of the tabs. Just pick the year and look at the date. At the end of September, we'll have finished another calendar quarter, and we always try and post these quarterly updates within a month of the close of a calendar quarter, so the next update will come at the end of October. Through June 30th, we were about break even for the year. My guess is 2021 is likely going to show a little bit of a loss from operations. That is entirely to do with the pandemic, the year of 2020. If you think about a typical year, there's usually half of the season is in one calendar year, the next is in the second calendar year. And in 2020, things were shut down. You saw earlier that our membership numbers were extremely low, and there was also impacts on our corporate sponsorship revenue. All in total, in 2020, we had about $150,000 drop. Progress is slow, but continues with new sources of revenue. Just to update you all, we increased the borrowing capacity on our line of credit card, which is one of the things we use for transportation expenses related to high performance teams, especially. It went from 25,000 to 90,000, which is a testament to the bank's confidence in our ability to move forward. And we also borrowed $100,000 on our working capital line in July of 2021. Again, this is a direct impact of the reduced membership and sponsorship revenue in 2020 due to the pandemic. The capacity to borrow an additional $50,000 still remains constant. And I am going to close out financials because I'm excited to hear from some Paralympians coming up.
Yep. Before we get that, I'm gonna cover some grant and fundraising opportunities really quickly. And Tina, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. So really what we wanted to do here is, as we think about, one of the ways that we can help our membership is just getting reminders out there on what might be sources of funds, whether that be for teams or for individuals, whether that be for events or equipment grants or what have you. So I'll cover in a minute where we have on our website a more comprehensive list of where these different sources of information are. But the purpose of this slide is to give you a sense of what is upcoming in the remainder of the year, Q3 and Q4. And hopefully you all have seen the information that we've been sharing on Challenged Athletes Foundation. But CAF has come on and been a great supporter of the NWBA. Before that, they've been putting a lot of money into funding both equipment and travel for training for athletes. Their deadline is November 5th, and I just highly encourage you all to not wait until we get towards the end of that timeline, but really understand the requirements. The website is listed here on this, but they do a great job working with various wheelchair manufacturers to help fund individual chairs. And hopefully by now all of you have had, either for yourself or individuals within your programs, get a CAF grant for equipment. Then the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation Quality of Life grants, the proposals are due for that on October 14th. The website's listed. I Am Able grants, their deadlines, there's two of them listed here, September 30th and December 31st. And then ABC Medical has a scholarship program that you can find more information on. And ABC Medical does a really good job helping out at local events and supporting local tournaments and whatnot. But this scholarship program is another neat feature that they put on. Next slide, Tina. So here, for the first website listed on this slide is where we have funding opportunities on the website. So again, some of the grants are for individuals, some of the grants are for programs, others are for organization. The grants listed, they provide a wide variety of financial support. It could be the equipment and travel that I was referring to earlier, program support, childcare expenses. One of our national team athletes was given a great travel grant for her family as well to get to an event, which was pretty cool. And I think even if you can't get all of your athletes to go out to this page, or if you're an athlete and you can't get all of your teammates to do it, someone from each program should be diving into the link and just seeing what all's out there. And by the way, if you go out there and you see that something's missing, please let us know, because we want to make sure that we're continuing to make the list better for our participants and members. The second website listed is for our NWBA webinar series, which is presented by ABC Medical. They've really gotten behind this program with us to bring content to all of you as we try to build the skills of our members. And it just includes a lot of helpful topics. But as it relates to what we're talking about right now, last year we had two important ones that fit this section. Finding and securing grants, or understanding and securing grants. Cheryl Bynes, who works with various organizations on their grant process, and Darlene Hunter, who does a lot of stuff down in the Dallas and Texas region. They did a great webinar. It's something that I've now watched multiple times as I think about grants that I'm going after from an NWBA perspective. So I'd really encourage you to go and learn from them. We put these recordings out on that site just so that people can reflect on them at different times. And then donors and fundraising. Mike Gotze provided some great insights there, and we had someone from the Courage Kenny facility up in Michigan who also participated. So just some great tools for all of you to consider as you're thinking about continuing to try to claw back your revenue. You know, you guys probably lost a lot of revenue due to COVID, and those are some tools that can help you think of creative ways to do that as well. So then the next slide, Tina. Basically, what I wanted to do with this slide is to let you know that a peer-to-peer campaign is coming. And some of you participated last year in a peer-to-peer campaign. We had a couple instances of it, but it was a great way to help teams make up for lost revenue. And just a high-level summary of this is it allows teams to use the story of their program and the story of their athletes to go out and to talk with people in their network to help raise funds for that program. And we created a 90-10 split where 90% of the funds raised by those teams stayed with that program, and then the other 10% helped us cover administrative cost and time spent on actually administering it, as well as covering the cost of the tool that we provide to individuals. So you'll be seeing an announcement that will not only talk about an upcoming webinar where I'll go over the tools, the resources, tips, and tricks for a successful peer-to-peer campaign, but also the timeline that we're going to follow in order to do that. And I think if you talk with anyone who's done this in the prior round, you'll quickly learn that the teams who put the most effort into it were able to get the most value out of it. And we're really excited to have hopefully more teams lean in this year and hopefully get more of a budget so you could travel to the events that we're beginning to see get put in for event sanction applications. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it over to our new but returning board member. Next slide, Tina. Yeah, to our new but returning board member, Michelle Alvin. She had a stint on our board several years ago, and as we were going through our governance committee work, we called Michelle and felt like we could really use her skill set as a communicator and as a veteran herself to come back to the NWBA board and help us continue to take the organization to the next level. So Michelle, welcome back, and thank you for facilitating this next section.
Thank you so much. It's really good to be back. You guys are, I always hit not mute, so I want to make sure I'm not on mute. And Tina and Will, thank you for letting me do probably the most exciting, other than financials, probably this is the most exciting part of the presentation. So thank you. And it's really good to see all my friends, Lee and Buddy and everyone. So thank you everyone for all your awesome messages. But without further ado, let's get started. I am really excited about the Paralympic Games. You know, as you know, USA has a long history of winning medals in wheelchair basketball, a sport that we're all so proud to be part of. So huge congratulations to the men and women's teams on their medal winning performances Tokyo. I know all of us were glued to our TVs watching these games. They were amazing. And next slide, yes. And speaking of proud, congratulations to five-time Paralympian Matt Scott, who was selected to lead the 2020 US Paralympic team into the closing ceremony in Tokyo. Did you know that Matt was nominated for the Best Male Athlete with a Disability ESPY Award in 2008? And he was the first US Paralympian to star in a Nike commercial. Matt, we're all very proud of what you've accomplished, and not only on the court, but off of the court. Congratulations. Next slide. And tonight we will celebrate our Tokyo Paralympic game victories by speaking with two of our athletes that were there and made it happen. And you get the opportunity to ask questions to share in the experience. Without further ado, let me introduce our Paralympians that are here with us tonight. We have Darlene Hunter, who really needs no introduction, but I'm going to have to do it anyway as a formality. She is the co-captain of the Team USA women's wheelchair basketball team. She's a 3-time Paralympian, 2-time Paralympic medalist. And as most of you already know, Darlene is a veteran on the women's wheelchair basketball team. And not only is she a Paralympian, she has also mentored many of the next generation of Paralympic athletes. In addition to her athletic career, she has also added the role of coach, leading the Lady Mavericks wheelchair basketball team in Dallas, and also hosts an annual women's wheelchair development camp out of the University of Texas, Arlington. She competed in track and field before picking up wheelchair basketball, where she competed at the 1999 and 2001 IPC Athletic World Championships. Welcome, Darlene. And we also have the pleasure of having John Boy here with us tonight. John was a first-time Paralympian this summer, where he and his team earned his first gold medal. John began playing wheelchair basketball after attending a summer camp at age 11 at the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater. He loves throwing an ultimate disc or a football and has recently picked up wheelchair lacrosse. Welcome, John. So before we begin, if you have a question for Darlene or John, please add your questions to the chat. You'll find it on the right-hand side of your screen. So let's start with the obvious question for both of you. What is your favorite memory from the 2020 Tokyo Paralympic Games? Darlene, let's start with you.
My favorite memory, I guess, was like actually getting there, because it was kind of shaky for a little bit if we were going to get there or not with COVID. But really, it was the excitement of walking into the village. It was a really long day on the flights, but like we had 9 rookies. So walking in the village the first time and just seeing how big their eyes were, even though they had been traveling for 36 hours. And then that was just the start to like an amazing trip. Like Tokyo was super fun for our team. And it was really fun to watch all the kids see it for the first time.
I love it. And speaking of being there for the first time, John, what was your favorite memory of the Olympic Games, Paralympic Games?
John, you're
on mute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I do that all the time, John, all the time. Every single week.
Yeah, being new, the whole thing was, an awesome experience, but winning always makes things really fun. So having that final buzzer go off and, having the culmination of all this time and effort and extra year of work come together and to just kind of break down and celebrate with my teammates was one of the things I look back on the most. Comes to mind of a picture of me and Matt Lesperance, who played together since we were little kids in grade school. To be together at that stage was a really cool picture. Just that whole memory of celebration post game.
I love that. Thank you. Darlene, what was your experience in Tokyo compared to your experience in Rio and London? How was it different? I mean, other than COVID, obviously.
Right. I think all the Paralympic Games are so different. Tokyo, for me, what was really special is that that's the first time the United States followed Paralympics as much as they did. And so that was super exciting for our team, because people actually knew what we were doing and that Paralympics were going on. And it was so fun to get after games, know that our membership was up all night long, watching us all play and coming back to like messages on social media about how cool the game was and how they've stayed up and how we've messed up their sleeping schedule, and just to really get the support from home, because they haven't been able in the past to watch our games. And so that was, even though the stands may have not been full, for us as a team, because of the NWBA membership and our fans back at home, it felt like we had them there with us all the time, and maybe a little bit more personal because they were forced to go on social media and in our inboxes. So that was really fun for Tokyo. London did an amazing job of just having billboards, and their whole community actually embraced us as a Paralympic movement. And UK has always been really on the forefront with their superhuman commercials and stuff. So when we got there, they had like talk shows and comedian shows. And so like their fans really knew us, our names and numbers. So that was really fun. And then in Rio, those games almost got canceled. I don't know if people actually understand what happened before Rio, but Rio almost got canceled for us because they didn't have enough money, because the Olympic movement actually took the Paralympic funding. And so going to Rio and knowing that those fans bought more tickets for the Paralympic Games than they did the Olympic Games and really stood behind the movement because it was that important was really amazing. So each game has held a different memory, but it's all really fun, and it's hard to compare them because they're all so different.
I can imagine. Thank you. John, as your first time as a Paralympian, is it what you expected? Is it was it more than you expected? Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, unlike most of my teammates coming in as the new guy, I didn't really have anything to compare it to. So all of it to me was amazing. To go through all of the processing, to go through the Paralympic Village and get your credentials was exciting. To see the venues and everything from start to end was really special to me because it was the first time I'd done it. So, I mean, overall, it was a pretty cool experience.
Very cool. So here's another question for both of you. What advice do you have for a kid that's now participating on a local team for wheelchair basketball, but watched you during the Paralympic Games and now has aspirations to become a Paralympian? What should they start doing right now? John, let's go with you first.
Yeah, I can relate because I was that kid. I started playing when I was 11 and, got to go to a camp and play against some Paralympians that were at the camp. It took a long journey for me to just make the team. I started trying out when it was 2008 and I first made a team when it was 2017. So it's something, if it's really your passion, is to continue to push on and work hard and, get a sense early of what it's going to take to reach that level and know that it's going to take a while to get there. So keep pushing on.
Great advice. Thank you, John. And Darlene, what advice do you have?
I think going into the gym past the practices that you have with your teams, right? Like everybody, there are kids that think oh, I just practice with my team and that's enough. And you have to be shooting those shots when no one's around. Like, what are you doing when no one's watching, and how much time are you willing to put in? Like John, I got cut 7 times before I made a national team. And so it's persistence, it's the grit, it's the determination to keep going. And just because you got cut the first time doesn't mean that that's the end of your journey. I was a late comer. I didn't play basketball until college, and I didn't make my first team until I think I was 27, 28 years old. And, I'm now the oldest on the team and still hanging in there. So it's just really getting in a gym all the time and just loving it and having fun. I think once it's not fun anymore, it's really hard to have the drive.
All right, so don't give up, those of you that are listening. So similarly, but on the other spectrum, what advice would you give to junior players or players that are just starting out to keep them motivated to stick with the sport of wheelchair basketball? Because we all know that sometimes it gets a little bit frustrating. What kind of advice can you give? Darlene, why don't you start?
I think it's constantly having fun, challenge yourself, right? So starting out is always really frustrating because unfortunately in wheelchair basketball, you're put on a team with people who have been playing 0 months and 15 years all at the same time, right? So you come into a gym for a first time and it could be intimidating with those people that have been playing and already know the game, and it's hard to fit in at the beginning. And I think, find that niche, find that person that's willing to encourage you and continue to go. On the women's side, we really try as older adults to mentor those kids and keep that interest in them on social media and stuff. But I think just getting in a gym with role models that you have, all of us are willing to give back and really want the best for us as wheelchair basketball players. So it's important to find people that will continue to help you. And there's some amazing programs out, and don't just get frustrated because everybody wants to learn everything in the first week, and wheelchair basketball takes a long time to learn. And so just keep trying.
Awesome. Thanks. Great advice, Darlene. John, do you have any other advice to give for somebody that's starting out and maybe gets a little frustrated?
Yeah, I mean, I can relate because I came in as a class 1, and for those that understand classification, you would probably say I have a disadvantage compared to a class 2 or 3 or 4. But that competitive nature is something that really drove me to continue to want to compete against them and beat those people and be faster than the higher class players. So understanding that you're going to have a role depending on your classification, I think is really important. And so being the man on your team that scores 40 points is not always the thing that's going to stand out. There's other ways to contribute. And so understanding your role and really fitting into that, I think, is more important in the long term. But keep sticking with it. You'll get there.
Thank you, John. And sticking with the classification, I wanted to ask you a question. You were the only player to play all 40 minutes in the gold medal game. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what a huge value of low classification players at the international level means?
Yeah, it's something I learned.
Oh, you're on mute again.
Am I?
No, I could hear him.
It's something I definitely learned.
For some reason, I can't hear you.
Just a lag.
Am I good to talk? Yeah. So
Yeah, you're good, Jumper.
Oh, am I the only one then that can't hear? Yes? Oh, that's a problem.
I could hear you, Michelle, and I could hear John. So I think it might just be the lag of the computer. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, we can hear.
So yeah, no, definitely something I learned. Coming in, I kind of had an idea, but the more that the games went on, the more I understood, how important the classification is. Because a lot of other guys, you can sub 1 or 2 in. For myself, I understood that my role was really important to not only keep some of our higher class players on the floor, but also to get those big guys open. So people back home are watching me and they're like, why aren't you shooting the ball? Why are you doing what you're doing? Like, I always see you scoring. And I was like, well, on the US team, I got guys like Steve Serio and Brian Bell and Jake Williams and guys that are big and incredible shooters and incredible scorers. And, it's going to be easier as a team, get them open, get them close to the bucket. And so my role on the team changes a lot from home to USA, in that I can have a different impact on the court, and really help us.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
I just have to say one thing, because I think John Boy is over here understating his role a little bit. And for those who were glued to the TV, they know that early on in that gold medal game, he goes on a pick and roll with Steve, and he ends up rolling to the basket. Steve passes him the ball. He comes under the basket and comes up with the craziest, flipping the shot with his right hand off of the glass. The thing just like swishes in. So JB, you might not have shot a lot, buddy, but when you did shoot, I mean, it made a huge impact, and the team needed those, man. That was the sickest shot of the whole tournament.
Thank you. That was amazing. That was amazing.
I agree, Will. All I could hear was Marv Albert. Oh, what a spectacular move.
And Darlene, I have a classification question for you. In addition to your athletic career, you've also played the role of coach. Tell us about the importance of coaches within the junior programs to play lower classifications, and females.
Yeah, so females, it's challenging, right? Because we know that with our junior division, it's a mixed sport with male and females playing at the same time, and boys tend to develop faster muscle-wise and speed-wise than girls, and we don't want girls communicate better than boys. So there's benefits of having both on the floor, and they can be really powerful when you have them both together. I think that with the junior classification that we've added, it has improved, and we're seeing more women on the floor than we ever have in the recent years. And as a class 1, it's always a challenge, because in juniors we're the weakest class, right? We're the shortest usually, and seeing like our balance. So it's a lot of challenge to be a class 1 on the floor at juniors, where when you get to the adults in the collegiate division and at internationals, you see how valuable class 1s and low pointers are in general. those 4-5s can't get on the floor if the ones aren't there internationally. And so we know that we want those 4-5s on the floor. So ones are very valuable, and we tend to see it more in adult than we do in the junior division. And we want to keep those junior girls and low pointers around. So we have to value them. And they're, with the classification, we're doing better. And you can see that we are developing more low pointers and female in the division. But I think it's important to realize that just because girls are girls doesn't mean we should value them any less. And there are strengths that can come. They might not be the fastest, and they might not, be the strongest when we look at boys compared to them, but they are very skillful in communication and crafty and, defense and some other areas because of it. And I think, encourage your girls to shoot, encourage them to be this all around players that we encourage the boys to be. And I think that that's, my biggest advice to junior coaches is that, I played with a lot of girls at women's nationals this year, and they said they weren't allowed to shoot on their teams at home. And that was really discouraging to me. So I challenge that the junior coaches out there, put as much time and investment into your girls as you do your boys, and see them as the biggest threat. Because we had Excelt on the floor at 16 at the Paralympic level. And here's the funny story about Excel, and she'll probably kill me that I'm sharing this, but it's okay. We had to shoot 350 shots 3 times a week. This kid, so we had 3 days, you had to shoot 350 shots from 5 different, or 50 spots for 5 different spots, which equals 350. And Itzy thought that we had to do 350 spots from each shot.
Oh my gosh.
5 spots. So the kid was putting up crazy amount of shots every day. And when I finally got paired with her, and she's like, what do you mean I haven't had to shoot that many shots a week? And we're like, no, but thank you for the dedication to the team and wanting to shoot that. And now she's an amazing shooter out there, right? And you'll see that as she plays in juniors. So if we challenge the girls and we give them, the self-esteem and confidence boost that we need to, they are amazing athletes and have that potential, but we have to invest in them. And I think that we have to get past the point that, no offense to the boys, that the girls are just as strong and could do just as much. When we go back to the total, if we go back one slide to the total of medals that the women's team won and the men's team won, this is the 13th women's Paralympic team that we've had. And I think we've totaled 8 medals. So we're 8 for 13, which is a pretty impressive number for women's USA basketball, I think. And I think that's an important part of history to remember. And if you go to the men's side, in the very beginning of history, just to put it out there, we could submit 2 men's teams to a Paralympic event. And so there has been more men's teams than there has been women, and we're doing pretty good in the medal count. So keep investing in those women's. We need a pipeline.
All right, that's a challenge from Darlene. And 350 shots per position. I got it. We got it now. Thank you. And then here is a question for both of you from Teresa. What was a challenge you both faced during the game? How did you and your teams address that challenge? John, let's start with you.
Yeah, I don't think there was any one huge outlying trouble that we faced, but I think every day there's always going to be a little thing that changes. Whether it's the schedule or the transportation, or this is late, or somebody forgot this, or practice got moved to a different time. But I think really the whole year is something to look at of the resiliency that our team had to continue to train and to be at this level, and to have some veteran guys in our team that continue to keep their bodies in shape and be ready to play is the bigger thing that I think we overcame versus just at the games itself. Is a long journey, is a little bit longer runway this year, being 5 years instead of 4. I think that was the bigger thing that we overcame, just to be able to get there and avoid all the distractions, and get to the village with no positive tests was a big relief. So that was our biggest thing that I think we overcame as a team.
I can imagine. Thank you. Darlene, do you have anything? What was your biggest challenge?
Canada. I think our biggest challenge was Canada, because we have lost to them so many times in this quad. And that was our quarterfinal game that really got that like off our back, you know, like really gave us the confidence in the tournament. And I think beating Canada really turned us as a team. And so that was, you know, once that happened, the confidence and the together of playing came together really well for our team. And so Canada was our biggest challenge, I feel like, just mentally getting over that hump.
I can imagine. Well, I just want to thank you both for being here with us today and in sharing your incredible stories. I wish we had more time, but I guess we'll just have to schedule another chat. Thank you, Darlene, and thank you, John, for being here and speaking with me. And Tim, back to you.
And I need to remember to take it off mute as well. All right, so now we have progressed. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Darlene and John. Thank you all the presenters for sharing the updates this evening. We're going to now move to the general questions and answering portion of the town hall. So please feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat.
Tina, there's one in the
And Will, I
chat.
see one from Kevin. I was going to say, what is the deadline for team and individual registrations?
Tina, do you have that one top of mind?
Yeah, so the deadlines for team and individual registrations, basically depending on what deadline you're looking for, can be a little bit different. So if you're referring to the postseason deadlines, I don't have those directly in front of me right now. If Brandon were here, he'd be able to rattle them off the top of his head. I'm not as good as Brandon. So those I can get to you separately and make sure that information's shared. There's also deadlines such as making sure that teams are registered and that individuals are registered to vote during annual assembly and division annual meetings. And those are obviously outlined in our bylaws, but basically it's 90 days before the date of the annual assembly. We created an annual assembly and a divisional annual meeting web page last year, basically to help make sure that people understand those deadlines and all the information that's out there about annual assembly and the divisional annual meetings. So we'll make sure that those continue to get updated as we move forward through the season.
And then Kevin, I see you followed up with another question about beginning of the season registration. Those registrations are open for team and individuals already. They are active. So if that's what you're looking for, you can go to the website and get started with that for the team and the individuals. And then Will, there is another question in there regarding any idea when the peer-to-peer fundraiser will start. I know you had mentioned in about 7 to 10 days there will be a time to learn a little bit more, but if teams are, when do you expect it to be able to be launched for those individual or for those teams?
No later than October 11th.
Perfect.
But when I put the communication out for everyone on the webinar to give you all an overview on it, I'll have the whole timeline included in there on building your page, when it launches, when it closes, and everything else. So stay tuned for that.
And everyone, please do not forget that the transfer deadline is December 31st for the adult division.
Good at. Thank you, buddy. Any other questions before we adjourn for the evening? I think great content, great to end it on some words of wisdom from John Boy and Darlene on their individual journeys and experiences. But if questions come to mind after this session, by all means, people should feel free to reach out to myself or Tina. We'd be happy to get back to you. And really, I guess in closing, just to reiterate, couldn't be more thrilled with the speed of registrations this year. I think if you had all of us kind of taking an over under we probably would have thought that we'd be lower than the level that we're already at. And the rate just continues to increase. You know, we looked at it about 9 days ago, and the number of teams registered was 65. And so then you say, okay, 9 days later, when we did the roll up earlier today, we were at 104, and the number just keeps growing. Same with the individual registration. So for all of you who've already registered, thank you. We're going to need all team administrators and leaders to continue to support your athletes and non-athletes to get registered individually. But we're also here to help. So continue to reach out. We'll do our part to make sure that we're removing the obstacles. And we're most excited to just get back out on the circuit and hear the ball bouncing in gyms and see some of the people and individuals get back to playing the game that they love. So thanks to all of you for doing that, and for everyone else behind the scenes for your effort in getting us to this point. So with that, Tina, maybe you could click to the thank you slide. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Yeah, thank you all for taking the time out of your schedules to participate in the quarterly town hall. Mark your schedules for Wednesday, December 15th, beginning at 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time for the next quarterly town hall. And we hope everyone has a great evening and a successful start of the season. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.